Good afternoon. I'd like to call to order the Scottsdale Housing Agency Governing Board for May 8th. And could we start with a roll call, please?
Chair Lurie.
Here.
Vice Chair Jung.
Here.
Commissioner Jamison.
Here.
Commissioner Shearer.
Here.
Commissioner Dodds.
Here.
Commissioner Turgel.
Here. Commissioner
Commissioner Cooley.
Here.
Chair Lurie, you have a quorum.
Thank you. So this is a time allotted for public comment. Citizens may address members of the Housing Agency Governing Board. This time is reserved for comments regarding non-agendized items. And testimony is limited to 3 minutes per speaker. Do we have any written comment cards?
We do not, Chair Lurie.
Okay. So moving forward, could I get a motion to approve the regular meeting minutes from April 10th?
So moved.
Second.
All right, and a roll call vote?
Chair Lurie.
Yes.
Vice Chair Jung.
Yes.
Commissioner Jamison.
Yes.
Commissioner Shearer.
Yes.
Commissioner Dodds.
Yes.
Commissioner Turgel.
Yes.
Commissioner Cooley.
Yes.
All right, and I would like to turn it over to Mary to tell us about the Housing Agency program analysis.
Good evening, Chair Lurie, members of the Commission. I come before you tonight. This was an agenda item requested by Chair Lurie to provide some additional information and data regarding our Scottsdale Housing Agency. It doesn't move. There we go. I could just wing it, but then my speaking would make absolutely no sense without the pretty graphs. So before you see the demographics of our current Housing Choice Voucher participants. On the left-hand side is the race and ethnicity, and as you can note, 64% of our current HCV participants are Caucasian. Regarding the tenant age, on the right side of the slide, you can see that the strongest majority of our tenants are between the ages of 50 and 64. As we talked previously during the last commission meeting, I talked about, through our consolidated action plan, some of the Housing Choice Voucher participants when they first entered the program. I'm not sure if you remember that graph. It had three information slides up there, but at admissions, with all of our current participants, 51% of those who were admitted to our program were disabled, 36% were elderly, and 16% were homeless at admission. Now, they could be one, they could be two, or they could be all three. But those are the strong majority of our participants are elderly, disabled, and or homeless. With our next slide, I'm going to talk a little bit about, this is something that all of you are welcome to look at. It's called the Housing Choice Voucher Dashboard. So if ever in your free time you want to take a look at what is going on with any housing agency across the entire United States, just Google Housing Choice Voucher Dashboard, and you can do a drop-down box. And on this one is specifically geared toward the Scottsdale Housing Agency. Please note that some of this data does reflect, more specifically, our HUD-held reserves in the bottom right-hand corner is reflective of December 31st of 2023. So this is not an accurate number, but as of December of 2023, we had $1.1 million in our HUD-held reserves. We are taking proactive measures with Housing and Urban Development on a monthly basis to ensure that we are keeping those who are currently participants sufficiently housed here in the city of Scottsdale. Currently, we have 535 families leased. That number has slightly increased since this slide was created. We are at 549 families to date. We are spending approximately 111% of our budgetary authority. What does that mean? That means that we are dipping into those HUD-held reserves that I've talked to you a little bit about before, where the more you spend, the lower you go, the more you'll get funded. Yes, we're in a precarious time with the government, but we still have to dance the housing dance to ensure we get more funding. Our average per unit cost as we sit today is $1,281. However, we are projecting by the end of 2025 our average per unit cost to be $1,350 with the average rental increases. If you go in and compare this to like the city of San Diego or a city out in California, we're actually just slightly under those larger cities out there. So we have a high rental rate or a high rental market here in the city of Scottsdale. The graph in the far left-hand corner, if you look at the blue, those are our vouchers that are issued. If you look at the black, that is our current budget utilization. So you can see our voucher utilization is trending downward and staying steady, but the budget utilization is going up with the black lines. And that's because of the rising costs of rents. There we go. So our next slide, I'm going to talk a little bit about our per unit cost and just kind of show you how it's changed over the last 10 years. So if you look in the bottom right-hand corner, you'll see where it says average per unit cost year over year. And our average per unit cost in 2015 was $566. And as I discussed tonight, our current average per unit cost is $1,289. That's 6% increase per unit cost that the city of Scottsdale is paying per person housed over the last 10 years. What voucher sizes are we currently issuing here in the city of Scottsdale? This slide represents that the majority of our housing choice voucher participants are either 1-bedroom or 2-bedroom voucher holders. That is the strong majority. As you can see, we have one person who does have a 5-bedroom and very few that have efficiencies 3 bedrooms or 4 bedrooms. Let's talk a little bit about the tenant portion rent. So when I talk about the per unit cost earlier in the slide, that per unit cost is what the city of Scottsdale's housing agency is paying to the landlords. So on average, we are paying directly from our HAP or our housing assistance payments, I said like $1,289 a month. So what is the tenant contributing? So on the left-hand side, you see the family contributions. In the blue line, that's the city of Scottsdale. The red line is Arizona overall, and the green line is the average in the nation. So as you can see, the city of Scottsdale is quite higher. What tenants are required to pay their fair share, more so than the average in the state of Arizona. And now you can see the United States is overall on the upswing, but definitely around 2022, it peaked. And I think that was right after COVID when the trends started upward going. On the left-hand side is our utility allowance. And you can see for the dark turquoise line and the burgundy line, those are per unit bedroom size and per household member in the city of Scottsdale. So you'll see the number reflected AZ032. That is the Scottsdale Housing Agency's number. So whenever you go to the Housing Choice Voucher dashboard and you click on Scottsdale, you're going to find that number. That is how we're referenced through HUD, Housing and Urban Development. As you can see from these graphs, you can see the per unit bedroom size and the per cost per household member for utilities is on the rise as well, across the board and across the state. Rent burden. We often talk about rent burden, and per HUD regulations, any tenant that is paying more than 30% of their adjusted monthly income is considered cost burdened. They are considered severely cost burdened if they're paying more than 50%. We are allowed to let residents at lease up go up to 40%. But as you can see from this slide, on the left-hand side, the housing agency, the families that are paying over 30% or greater than 34%, or 30% is 34% of our current housing choice voucher participants. Approximately 7.3% of them are paying over 40% of their adjusted income, and we do have 4.3% of our voucher holders that are severely cost burdened, paying greater than 50%. Please understand that when they're leased up, we cannot lease beyond that 40%. And sometimes they get into this cost burden state due to their income decreasing or their family size composition decreasing, and the family chooses to remain in place. So if their income or their family composition decreases, we would issue a new voucher, like a 1-bedroom voucher, but they continue to stay in a 2-bedroom unit. So it is because of they chose to stay, they then become cost burdened. So how is people's statuses or demographics impacting their cost burdened, or specifically, how does it cost burdened actually at the Scottsdale Housing Agency? So I talked a little bit about the majority of our participants. 63% of our current people who are enrolled are disabled. What does that mean for the Scottsdale Housing Agency? It means that the majority of our population is 60 and older, which means that they are justified in requesting reasonable accommodations. Reasonable accommodations for a 2nd bedroom for a live-in aid, or reasonable accommodations for medical equipment, which then increases the voucher side and increases the per unit cost that we have to pay per person. So that's how it does impact, but this is the true demographic of the city of Scottsdale. On the bottom half of the slide, you can see the average adjusted monthly income, or what our tenants are currently earning here in the city of Scottsdale. 53%, or more than half of our participants, are earning between $1,000 and $5,000 a month, and that's their adjusted income. That is after taking off if they're elderly, we reduce it, if they have children, but that's their adjusted monthly income. After that, 30%, and this is where you're primarily going to see your seniors and disabled, are between $500 and $1,000 a month. This next slide, I think we missed the payment standards one, which is the slide before. There we go. Now again, this is in 2023. So when we come before you in October each year, we talk about setting our payment standards. Don't forget, Housing and Urban Development gives us their fair market rents. They usually release them around October, September. And their fair market rents are set, and any housing agency is allowed to set payment standards between 90% and 110% of that fair market rent. So on average, in 2023, again, this is older data, but this is what is on the Housing Choice Voucher, the housing dashboard. Our average payment standard is about 107% above that fair market rent, is where it's sat. Housing Choice Voucher offsets. What does that mean? That means that if we're not spending as much as our budgetary authority as we have, and we're sitting and increasing our HUD-held reserves, HUD can sweep in and take that money. And sure enough, in 2023, they took close to $500,000 from us. So that decreased our HUD-held reserves. But since then, we have been increasing our utilization and making good strides, and that's why we're now meeting with them on a more frequent basis to ensure that we can keep people currently housed. And our last slide is talking a little bit about our administrative fees. Our administrative fees are different from our housing assistance payments. Housing assistance payments, also referred to as our restricted position, we can only use that funds to pay rent. We have something called an unrestricted net position, where we're allowed to pay for any administrative costs, which include training, office supplies, salaries, and can't talk today, and any kind of additional administrative fees associated with it. HUD sets administrative fees. Each year, the 2025 administrative fees have come out, and there are 2 columns, and I know it's a little bit confusing, but there's 2 columns, and our current administrative rate is $96.62. What that means is we receive $96.62 each month for each unit leased. So if we have 549 units leased times $96.62, that's the amount of administrative fees that HUD will grant us. There's two different columns, like I said. The second column is a type B, and that's slightly lower at $90.17. Any amount that goes over 7,200 units month leased, what that equates to is 600 families, which we're not currently at. If we exceed that amount, then we would start receiving the full allocation at 600 units month, or for 600 families, 72,000. Anything beyond that, then they would fund us at that smaller rate. So if we had 7,300 units months leased, they'd give us 7,200 units month leased for $96, and that additional 1,000 would be at that smaller rate. So as you can see in the bottom left-hand corner, our unrestricted net position in 2023, we received $608,000. That actually concludes my presentation for this evening, and I'll be happy to open up and answer any questions.
Mary, thank you very much for walking us through that. When you shared the report with me, I found it so enlightening and so informative. And I really wanted everybody here on the dais to be exposed to this. The dashboard is accessible without a password. It's just we can...
Open to the general public. You just go into Google and type Housing Choice Voucher Dashboard, or just type HUD HCV Dashboard. You can look at it across the state, across the nation. There's just a drop-down box. As you can see on the top of the screen where it says select a network, select a region, select a field office, select a state. I would strongly encourage you to hit select a state first so that it narrows it down to those in the state of Arizona, but don't be afraid to look at like San Diego and New York and really see big budgets.
Well, looking around, Commissioner Cooley.
Thanks, Mary. Appreciate this very much. While we're on the subject of the dashboard, does it allow you to do comparisons between markets?
You can compare us to any other city, yes. Ooh. There's a way for you to compare us to any other city in the United States.
Interesting. And on the what voucher sizes are driving per unit cost, I was surprised to see that 1 bedrooms exceeded 2 bedrooms. Is that historically been the case? And does this reflect the new SAFMR? Small area fair market rents?
It does currently reflect.
Okay.
This is that is the most current data that we have, yes, of our currently leased individuals.
And historically, does it ring true that it's been 1 bedrooms in the majority? For some reason I thought it was 2, I don't know why.
Its majority is 1 and 2 bedrooms.
Okay.
Sometimes it splits, sometimes one's a little bit greater than the other, but that is the strong majority is 1 and 2.
Great, thank you so much for this information.
Commissioner Scherer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mary, great presentation. I'm very impressed with and continue to be your grasp of the information. And there's so much under the tip of the iceberg dealing with HUD that we don't get exposed to. And I think you and Christina and the staff do a great job. I had a question about the funding formula, if there is a formula. Like, for example, we know we have a formalized CDBG grant. We know we get home dollars through the local consortium. How do we receive housing choice voucher funding? Is there a label under a type of grant, or can you elaborate on that?
Chair Lurie, members of the commission, it's a little bit complicated, but not as easy as CDBG. CDBG has or Community Development Block Grant has a very strict formula on which it's utilized. Congress will set an appropriation for the entire nation. Once Congress sets the appropriation, they make a decision on whether to fund that at 100% or using something called a proration factor. And a proration factor means that you're going to get either less, you get less than the amount. I mean, we've seen it could have a 98% proration factor, which means that we're only losing 2% of funding. But it could go as low as 80%, so it's a reduction in 20%. But it's based on congressional appropriation, number one. And the second thing that they look at is the prior calendar year. Housing choice vouchers, our funding is allocated on a calendar year as opposed to a federal fiscal year. So it's allocated from January to December. So when they were going to fund us, and we still have not received our renewal letter for 2025, they are looking at what we spent as of December of 2024. Thus why we say we need to get our utilization up and expend our funds at 100% or above and reduce those HUD-held reserves, because the more you spend and they see you spending it, they say, oh, they need some more money because they still have capacity. We have 770 vouchers, but we only can lease up 549 of them because we don't have sufficient budgetary authority. So it's based on a proration factor is all I can say. There's a whole tutorial on it. I'd be happy to share it with you. It will put you to sleep in 5 minutes or less.
Thank you. I think you covered that for me very well. But I did want to also mention, regarding the HUD budget, I think the administration's proposal seriously cuts money for these types of programs, probably all of the programs that we participate in. And so I thought it was smart thinking that the Budget Review Commission did recommend that staff pursue threat assessments. And so because, I mean, our whole mission here is largely based on the generosity of the federal government to allow us to do good work here. And so if you could keep us posted when you get any more concrete information or any information that you think would be helpful for us as we anticipate sort of our role next year with regard to potential limited funds.
Chair Lurie, members of the commission, have you received the fiscal year 25-26 skinny budget presented to Congress last Friday? I can forward that information from President Trump. He presented his budget.
Yeah, and that's what I was referring to, is I got the thumbnail version of that, which is fine. I was just looking for kind of the percentage of reductions in both staffing and overall dollars for HUD, and it was...
I have the detailed version, Chair Lurie, members of the commission, that I can forward to you so you can look through and see where their specific cuts lie.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Mary. I think that would be great to share that with the commission. Really appreciate the comment. Commissioner Jamieson.
On slide 3, thank you, Lee. With the overall escalation in what we're spending in terms of our overall allocation to take us to 111%, a pretty quick rise. Does that reflect the overall inflation of local rent as well? I mean, have we seen that spike in the last 18 or so months in rental costs, not just what we're paying in vouchers?
Chair Lurie, members of the commission, yes.
Okay.
Please also remember that we implemented small area fair market rents, and so different zip codes have different payment standards, so we're allowed to pay higher rates in different zip codes. But that is not currently reflected on here because this is 2024 data.
Any other comments or questions? If not, I have one final question, and that is when somebody new gets a housing choice voucher, is there some provision or mechanism in there to also help that person pay their deposit to be able to move into a new property?
Chair Lurie, members of the commission, we do refer them to Vista del Camino. And if it is an emergent situation, we can coordinate with them. Unfortunately, if funds are not immediately available, we do have other alternatives than we can search to. But Vista del Camino is definitely working directly with us to ensure those participants, as quickly as they possibly can, receive that voucher or receive that security deposit, we also have leeway in working with the landlord so that they can remain in the queue and be treated like everybody else.
Thank you. Seeing no other comments or questions, we'll move forward. Looking at the wrong agenda. This is a time allotted to identify future agenda items. Our next Housing Agency Governing Board meeting will not be until August. Actually, I do have a question about future meetings. And have we made any progress in identifying a resident person to join this board?
Chair Lurie, members of the commission, we still continue to advocate, and I offer that to our participants, but unfortunately, no.
Okay. Any other agenda items for future meetings? If not, could I get a motion to adjourn?
Second?
And a roll call.
Chair Lurie?
Yes.
Vice Chair Jung?
Yes.
Commissioner Jamison?
Yes.
Commissioner Scheer?
Yes.
Commissioner Dodds?
Yes.
Commissioner Turgel?
Yes.
Commissioner Cooley?
Yes.
We're adjourned for 3 minutes. Good afternoon. I'd like to call to order the Human Services Advisory Commission. And Kara, could we start with a roll call?
You bet, Chair Lori. Chair Lori,
Here?
Vice Chair Jung,
Here.
Commissioner Jameson,
Here.
Commissioner Cooley,
Here.
Commissioner Turgel,
Here.
Commissioner Dodds,
Here.
and Commissioner Scheer.
Thank you. Here.
Right. Commissioner Lori, you have a quorum.
Thank you. All right, this is a time reserved for public comment. Citizens may address members of the Human Services Advisory Commission. It's reserved for citizen comments regarding non-agendized items. Arizona state law prohibits the commission from discussing or taking action on these items, and testimony is limited to 3 minutes per speaker. Do we have any written comment cards?
Chair Lori, members of the commission, we do not.
Okay, so moving forward, could I get a motion to approve the regular meeting minutes from April 10th?
So moved?
Second.
Okay, and a roll call vote?
Chair Lori,
Yes.
Vice Chair Jung,
Yes.
Commissioner Turgel,
Yes.
Commissioner Dodds,
Yes.
Commissioner Scheer,
Yes.
Commissioner Cooley,
Yes.
Commissioner Jameson.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, moving forward, we're going to have Sue O, along with Jenny Mendoza and Liz Heavenrich, I believe. Did I miss anybody else that's presenting as part of the Vista del Camino update?
No.
Thank you, Chair Lori, members of the commission. My name is Sue O. It's my pleasure to introduce our presentation on the incredible work happening at Vista del Camino Community Center. As you know, Vista is more than just a community space. It's a vital resource for families and individuals in need. At Vista, we provide a range of essential services, including our CAP office, which assists residents with financial support, our food bank, ensuring that no one in our community goes hungry, and our family recreation nights, which brings families together for engagement and support. Jenny Mendoza will provide a comprehensive overview, including key statistics, funding updates, and community programs at Vista del Camino. Following Jenny's presentation, Liz will provide an update on the CAP office, where we'll discuss its operations, current challenges, and how we continue to serve the community through essential assistance programs. First, I am pleased to introduce Jenny Mendoza, the Human Service Supervisor at Vista del Camino. Jenny plays a vital role in ensuring that Vista operates smoothly. She oversees the front desk staff who handles incoming calls for food box appointments, financial assistance inquiries, and community referrals. She also supervises our rec leaders and manages their family rec programs, bringing meaningful engagement and support to families through community. Her leadership and dedication are instrumental in making sure we provide the best possible services to those who need assistance. Jenny?
Good evening, Chair Larry and members of the commission. It is my privilege to come before you today to just go over a lot of the wonderful things that Vista del Camino is doing. And I'd like to start by just going over just a quick overview. I will be going over first our front desk staff and what they do. They do a wonderful job. They actually have to take in tons of calls, and they do this on a daily basis. And I wanted to just share some of those stats with you. So social service contacts for just the admin staff, which is comprised of 3 staff. They actually service clients over the phone and in person, and they actually took calls from 13,984 people just within July through March. July of last year through March of this year. So we have an influx of calls, a lot of people calling with situations that involve like crisis, financial crisis, mental health issues, all kinds of an array of different things. And the front office staff is trained to take those calls, field them for, different variety of needs and decide what resources they need to be referred to, or do they need to be referred to our caseworkers, or whatever the situation is, whether it be other centers, whatever it is. Another thing that they do, and they started doing this last year, is that they actually assist with the intakes. And what I mean by that is that they go ahead and see the clients for utility assistance and help them with the application process. The application process can tend to be a little cumbersome, so the front desk staff takes time to make appointments with them, go over the application, input it for them if they need assistance. A lot of our elderly folks need assistance with that process, so that's what they are there to do as well, in addition to the caseworker staff. So they provide support in that way. So they were able to provide 138 client intakes from July of 2024 to March of this year. And overall, the total social service contacts that were administered through the front desk were 14,466 during that same time frame. Okay, and then for the next slide, this is overall staff at Vista del Camino. And the different social service contacts that they had with clients. So the first one I want to talk about is basically talking about what caseworkers and the front desk work together to see clients do intakes for for utility assistance. And so for the utility assistance, our front desk and the caseworkers took intakes of 1,195 clients to process them for their applications in addition to the rent assistance or mortgage assistance applications. Additionally, the whole staff as a whole, meaning career center staff, meaning caseworkers, front desk, and even management staff, fielded 19,671 information and referral contacts. And then as a whole, a total of 28,888 social service contacts, meaning even people that needed notary, people that needed career services. This is just as a whole, everything like from day relief, assistance, heat relief. We almost reached 30,000 contacts just within that time frame. Okay, and the next one is for funding updates. So from July 2024 through now, we have gotten 2 new grants. The first one is called the Urban Sustainability Directors Network Grant. This grant was awarded in the amount of $21,600. This grant was awarded to us for commercial equipment for the food pantry, for the recreation program, for the day relief center, and for heat relief. With these funds, we will be purchasing new refrigerators, freezers, for the food pantry and for the recreation program, for the day relief center, and to provide and to buy equipment and supplies to help people out during the time that we have the heat relief program, which is generally from May through September. And then our recreation program is also going to be able to obtain some new recreation equipment. We are trying to move our kids and our families to a healthier lifestyle, so we're thinking of bringing in more fitness type of equipment and different things that will motivate them to get healthy. And the next thing is a park equipment. If we need anything in the park, whether it be replacing disc golf course equipment or any of the other things that we have, like the sand volleyball nets and different things, we were able to get a grant to help us with that. The next thing is Maricopa County IGA amendment, and this is for ADO, the Housing Stability Flex Program grant. And although Liz will be talking a little bit more about this, I just wanted to let you know that this is available, and it's financial assistance for Scottsdale residents for preventing homelessness for 12 months. So if someone is eligible for this program, we are trying to, the qualifications or to get them into this program, we're trying to prevent them from being homeless for at least a period of 12 months. Next thing, our community program, something I'm very proud of, just based on the community need and the community speaking out really and wanting to have the recreation program back at Vista, which we once had. We were happy to pilot it in the summer, last summer, and it went it went very well. It was very successful. The community loved it. So we decided to, thanks to Kira's support and everybody who supported it, we are able to have that now ongoing. And just in the summer, we had June and July, but just in July, we had 69 participants for the summer, and that's children from young age all the way to seniors, which is awesome to see them all engaging. We also have our fall participants were 293, the winter were 179, the spring 141. And we are also prepping for our summer, which is super exciting because we will be opening up our, officially, the rec center, which was our, for a while, the food bank warehouse before they transitioned over to the other side. We were gonna have that large space to have our participants engage in all kinds of recreation and educational activities, so very excited about that. And also just wanted to make mention of, from February to April, we had Masters of Coin, Vita Tax Services, which prepared 156 returns, and they invested almost 298 hours helping a community, so that's another service that we offer there at Vista Del Camino. I wanted to show some pictures of our recreation program. And I think they're going kind of fast, but okay, so the first one is the April showers. This one we had the privilege of partnering with the library, Scottsdale Libraries, and their seed library, and they were able to give us over 50 packets of seeds that we were able to share with the children and the families, and they loved it. They took stuff they took little packages to plant, and then we also worked with Sheila. Sheila is our career service specialist who volunteered that day along with Zach, one of our great recreation leaders, and they were able to take a pothos plant, divvy it up, and be able to have the kids plant their own, transplant their own little plant. They were super excited. They also did an educational activity which taught them about photosynthesis, and it was pretty awesome. So it was really exciting to see them just engage and again partner up with the library. So that's one of just the pictures some of the pictures that I wanted to show you, is just kind of get an idea of what's going on there at Vista Del Camino during our programs. The next thing is we had a tie-dye night, and here we partnered up with the Pascuayaqui tribe. And they were able to donate a bunch of shirts, white shirts for the kids, and so they were super excited, and we were glad to have that collaboration with them, and we're seeing that there's just a wonderful unity and community happening, and we're excited about that. The other thing we did on that day is we used some coffee filters. Our wonderful rec leaders have wonderful ideas, and they tried something, and so they tie-dyed coffee filters and made beautiful bouquets of flowers out of them. So this is a picture that you're seeing here. Now I want to transition over to our volunteers. These are just the volunteers for Vista, not necessarily the food bank who has transitioned, but I just wanted to let you know that we rely a lot on volunteers, and Chair Larry can attest to that the Career Center is like, you know, very, very, very dependent on volunteers and the wonderful work that they do, and the career coaches are wonderful. So we have 6 career coaches that have spent 622 hours dedicated to people that are needing services in help filling out applications, help doing things like career testing or even career clothing, and filling out applications, getting resumes done for them. So we really appreciate all that work. And the administrative volunteers, we have 2 this year, and they have so far put in 180 hours. And then our Day Relief Center has 2 new volunteers who have put 4 hours towards that program. And just wanted to sum it up and just show you some beautiful pictures from our Humans in Service of Volunteer Appreciation event, which just happened April 29th, where we were able to honor our volunteers. Some of you were there and got to witness this in person, but This is a wonderful event where we actually honor all human services volunteers from all of the different departments in human services, where we get together and as one and just celebrate everything and all the accomplishments we had with the volunteers. And we had a wonderful Hawaiian lunch and gifts and a wonderful presentation about some dancers. And so I just wanted to share that with you. And that's it. Thank you. Do you have any questions?
Yes.
Thank you very much for the information, Jen. It was wonderful. Couple of questions. What is the source of the USDN funding, the 21,600? Where does that money come from?
It is the Urban Sustainability Directors Network, and do you know?
I don't know what that is.
What is that? Sue, can you attest to that?
Chair Lori, members of the commission, this isn't a grant that was actually received by the City of Scottsdale Sustainability Department, and we were actually fortunate enough when they no longer needed that. They came to Vista del Camino. Quite honestly, I don't know the whole history behind this exact organization, except for the fact that it was for sustainability, community support, and we were able to take that grant originally for sustainability and take it into human services.
So that wasn't a grant that this department or any of the staff went out and solicited?
We were a part of it. We were a part of the sustainability department, and it was actually specific to the senior center. And initially, it was going to be focused on doing an assessment and evaluation on solar panels at Granite Reef Senior Center. But again, the grant in the amount that it is here would really have just done a preliminary assessment on solar panels. So transition of sustainability director, this amount of money, again, we were able to take it in human services. So that's a little bit of the history of the grant.
Thank you. Does the Human Services Department seek other opportunities for funding sources, grants similar to this? Is that something that goes on a regular basis? And
Chair Lori and Commissioner Stu Churchill, all the time.
yeah, okay, thank you. And just one last point. I was looking at the number of volunteers, which we know getting volunteers is difficult for any organization. I would imagine, I wonder if the fact that there are just 2, is that right, in the day relief area, 2 volunteers?
Go ahead.
I would think that that might be an opportunity to attract more. I don't know how that's promoted or how you go about letting the broader community know that there are opportunities for volunteers.
Chair Lurie, members of the commission, Commissioner Turgel, actually we do get a lot of inquiries to volunteer at the Day Relief Center. We have several volunteers that donate their time at the Day Relief Center with the community house location. We only have the 2 because the shower trailer is under maintenance, and so once that comes back into operation, we will have them back and serving more hours.
Great, thank you, Sue.
Thank you.
Yeah, just to follow up on that, at this point, you haven't done active recruitment of volunteers for day relief at Vista. Is that correct?
Chair Lurie, yes. Brandon, with the City of Scottsdale volunteer coordinator, he does help us, and we have that information out on the website.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Jenny, a nice presentation, and I am going to tag on to Commissioner Turgel's question about a grant, except I'm asking about a different grant, the Housing Stability Flex Program grant is to prevent homelessness. Is that in the form of rental assistance to avoid people from being let out of their homes because they can't afford it? I mean, what form does that take?
Chair Lurie, members of the commission, Commissioner Scheer, I will be actually presenting about that grant specifically in our next presentation with Liz in our CAP office. That was an amendment with our CAP agreement with Maricopa County, and we don't get the funds in dollars per se. We get access to the funds so that we can connect clients to those funds, and we do an assessment. They'll have case management, and it's a lot more flexible than our CAP funds because it can cover a lot broader things such as car repairs, childcare, and things like that.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Now I'd like to shift to the Community Action Program. I will be presenting this with Liz Heavenrich. The Commission had the opportunity to meet Liz last month when she presented A Day in the Life of a Caseworker. Liz oversees the caseworker staff at Vista del Camino's CAP office. Liz's team helps individuals and families facing financial crisis by providing rent and utility assistance through a contract with Maricopa County and other local funds. Her dedication and support for both her staff and clients is truly commendable. So I'll be starting off. All right, so for this presentation, we'll start with staffing updates. And we'll also provide updates on funding for our CAP office specifically, and then we'll talk about some challenges and possible solutions for the application backlog in our CAP office. So the CAP office has CAP caseworkers, which you heard about previously in the Day in the Life of a Caseworker. The caseworkers' main goal is to determine eligibility process of rent and utility assistance. So that application process is pretty intense. It starts online in a Dynamics portal with Maricopa County. Our staff do have access to that portal. They look at the application. Our front desk also helps with that application process. Any seniors or people who may have difficulty accessing the application through the online portal, we do assist them with paper applications in our offices at Vista del Camino as well. With the ADO, Arizona Department of Housing Sustainability Flex program, we were able to get a caseworker, additional caseworker. It's going to be a temporary upgrade, and that person is going to be able to determine eligibility for this specific program. That person will also provide case management for 12 months for anybody in that program, and of course have access to those funds with Maricopa County. And of course, we have the Human Service Operations Supervisor who supervises the CAP team. She does the QAs for all of the applications, case reviews, and she also manages the local funding and budget allocations. In November of 2024, the longtime CAP supervisor, Angela Bravo Gallagher, retired, and Liz was promoted to the CAP supervisor role after a recruitment process, which created a vacancy on our team, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. And we're actively in the process of hiring to fill this position. So the Maricopa County agreement, the IGA, intergovernmental agreement, was recently amended because Maricopa County reached out to us and let us know that they received a grant from Arizona Department of Housing. So we were actually one of the 3 cities that they reached out to do this program with them. This program will provide additional funding to prevent homelessness. So we are allocated $267,674, and we do have to use that through December of 2025, but anybody that gets funding from this program will get case management for 12 months and follow-up case management, any additional rental assistance that's out there, referrals, things like that. So this program does provide a little bit more case management than our normal CAP funding process. Like I said before, this funding can pay for rent, utility assistance, and also car repairs, eviction judgments, clothing for work, childcare. So anything that really is, that may lead them to homelessness, we can assist with so that we can prevent homelessness.
Thank you, Sue, Chair Larry, members of the Commission. So I just want to talk a little bit about our funding that we have for direct service dollars. So as you probably know, we have two categories of funding. So we have allocations through Maricopa County for rent and utility assistance, and that's CSBG, TANF, and our largest funding source, HSRUA2, and then now that will include ADO funding as well. We also have what we call local funding for rent, utility, and mortgage, and that includes allocations from the SRPMIC gaming grants, and then also through our partnership with Scottsdale Community Partners. So you might ask, why do we need both? So the first, obviously, is that there's a very high demand for assistance. Additionally, we often need to combine different funding sources to cover the total amount that the client is owing for their rent or utilities. Most of the payments that we are processing are for amounts that are past due, except for maybe deposits. So the average rent payment amount for the last 2 fiscal years was $1,927. That's just for Maricopa County funding. The average utility payment was $391.09. Clients, when they come to us, they often are owing more than 1 month. So the funding sources through Maricopa County, CSBG, and TANF, if they're available and the client's eligible, they can actually pay up to $4,200. But that HSRUA is just, it doesn't have a limit, but it's only a 1-month payment. I do want to provide an update about DES LIHEAP. I know we've been hearing about that. So there were changes in the process for how LIHEAP is processed and approved. So before we received a LIHEAP funding allocation through our CAP contract through Maricopa County. So in October of 2022, there was a switch made where DES held the funding and decided to process it. So we as caseworkers were trained as navigators. So we were no longer determining eligibility. We are assisting clients to navigate their application to DES. In August of 2024, there was an issue with DES staffing, and then that's where the DES backlog started for those LIHEAP applications. Right now, the wait time for DES to review and process LIHEAP applications is about 7 months. However, if clients have a disconnect notice, they are reviewing and processing those within about 2 days. So right now, so far we have navigated 350 applications to DES for this fiscal year. Many of those applications are still pending. They have not been reviewed yet. We are experiencing an increased call volume, and so we're basically needing to use more of our other crisis resources, other funding, while the clients are waiting for, hopefully, to get approved for the LIHEAP assistance. In terms of kind of getting an update from Arizona DES, the messaging is really that it's kind of business as usual until there's more updates. So if there were drastic changes made to the LIHEAP program, we would probably need to utilize a lot more local funding, and we would probably go back to Maricopa County and work with them to see if there were any other solutions. I want to talk a little bit about our current challenges when we talk about our application backlog. So as Sue kind of mentioned, we had some recent staffing changes. We did have a gap, so we were short-staffed. We were down 2 caseworkers. We do, as I mentioned, we have a very high demand for the assistance. Right now in our queue, we have 351 applications. That's 195 utility applications, 153 rent applications, 2 mortgage applications. And within that, there's 42 applications that are renewals, meaning they recently got assistance and they're needing to reapply again. So for policy updates, when we talk about policy updates with CAP funding, as I mentioned, there's different funding sources. Each has a different policy, and we often receive policy updates or clarification, and that's multiple times over the course of the year. So for example, with our largest funding source, which is HSRUA 2, the income qualifier decreased from 80% AMI to 200% FBL. So that means clients that had a little bit higher income then kind of no longer qualified potentially for that fund source. And then the months that we could pay for that fund source decreased from a few months to just 1 month. And then when we talk about addressing those crisis situations, we have limited flexibility with what we can do due to our contract and the policy. So we are required to review applications in the order received, which, as you can imagine, creates some challenges with those crisis cases. A lot of our clients are receiving disconnect notices and eviction notices. And yeah, most of the applications in our queue, they are late on their rent payments already. So we are looking at solutions. So some of the things that we are working on in terms of our staffing gap. So we have filled 1 vacancy for those 2 caseworker positions. We are very close to filling the 6th caseworker position. For this next bullet point, I'm just going to have Sue jump in.
So I have been going to these meetings coordinated by Maricopa County. They noticed that a lot of the CAP offices under Maricopa County have been experiencing backlogs, and so they are bringing us all together to work on a solution. We've met twice now, and we decided to meet monthly. We have discussed our best practices, previously what was done before we had this amount of backlogs. We've also explored some system improvements that could happen, and we plan to come up with a solution very soon. I think in the next 2 months, they'll have us do a pilot program to really help with the backlog, especially maybe stopping the applications that come in. So I will provide an update once we have more information.
Thank you, Sue. So for our next solution, we have provided our front desk admin staff under Jenny. They do now have access to the Maricopa County portal where all the applications are, right, where all the clients are applying. They've already learned a lot. They are able to now provide updates to clients. They can do some minor administrative tasks. They can assist clients to add documents to their applications and more. This has also assisted a lot with reducing the call volume for the caseworkers. We are always looking at ways to be more efficient. So these might be small changes that we can make that kind of add up to have a bigger impact. So for example, we created electronically fillable forms for clients. We started using the city's electronic signature software to clients to sign maybe on their phone, so it's easier. We do send an email to all clients waiting in the queue, and it's updated and sent to clients based on policy changes as much as possible. We also created shared spreadsheets with other centers to better share information. And then we kind of talked about this at a prior meeting, but we did kind of look at a way to help with those crisis cases. So we created a process to refer clients to the PAYU or the senior centers. We did focus on the most vulnerable populations, seniors, adults with disabilities, and households with minor children so that we can kind of help them hopefully a little bit quicker if needed. And that's all I have for you. Any question?
Oh, I'm looking around and I know there's going to be some comments. And I should let Commissioner Cooley go first because I think he had a question when Jenny Mendoza was up and I didn't see his hand
That's
go
okay.
up. So,
Yeah, just to, I don't know, I guess there's no such thing as a dumb question, so I'm going to ask one. Could any of the VISTA career coaches, I'm just spitballing here, cross-train as navigators and/or help with the backlog or in using the county portal? Or does it have to be staff?
Chair Lurie, members of the commission, Commissioner Cooley, we actually did reach out to our careers coach, Sheila Williams, and she's a staff member, and she has been helping us with some internal utility assistance applications. The Dynamics portal with Maricopa County is a pretty intense portal. It takes a very, very long time to learn, and we do have to notify the county if any other people are allowed to be in that portal. Since they provide us with funding for our CAP caseworkers, of course, we have to notify them on who it is, and it is a lot of information, especially personal identifiable information in those portals, and so it takes an intensive process to even get the ID and password set up. So I do like that idea, and it is a possibility in the future if we have an interest in someone maybe with the credentials to help us in the CAP office.
Very good, thank you.
I'm gonna look around. I think I'm gonna go ahead and ask a question. I am gravely concerned about LIHEAP and what potentially can happen, particularly during our intense summer months. I have written to Congress, I've written to our senators. I think twofold question. One is, do we have any contingency fallback opportunity funds? And secondly, what more can this commission do to be advocates?
So, Chair Lurie, members of the commission, we do have several different utility assistance funds that we utilize currently. We have HEAF and SRPMIC and also SCP, Scottsdale Community Partners. They all provide funding specifically for utility assistance. We do have the opportunity to request additional funding through all of those programs, but it probably won't be nearly enough to cover LIHEAP. In terms of what you can do as a commission, I'm going to defer to Kira.
Chair Lurie, members of the commission, I think doing exactly what you're doing, writing letters and being supportive of a lot of this unknown, especially with the federal cuts. I was just trying to quickly look up my email because on behalf of the city did sign a letter relative to LIHEAP expressing that exact same concern that you did to the legislature on this type of thing. So, you know, our eyes are on it, and that is the best thing that this commission can do is, you know, support the efforts that we're doing and writing those letters in support of the programs.
Thank you.
Thank you. So I have a question just on that process and the available funds. So if I understand correctly, the client works with the CAP office to complete the application for those pocket of funds that there is a backlog for. And then during the interim, do I understand that there is this Maricopa County IGA additional funds available that can be used until December, plus the local funding?
Chair Lurie, members of the commission, Vice Chair Jung. So when someone is applying for rent assistance, they're not applying for a specific fund with Maricopa County. It's a portal that Maricopa County has, and because they're in Scottsdale, they'll notate that in their application. We will get that as the Scottsdale CAP office and determine based on what they applied for and what they're eligible for, which funding source that would be able to help them. So with the IGA, we have all of those funding sources, like Liz mentioned. All of those funding sources have different policies and eligibility requirements, and an additional one that we recently got was the ADO Sustainability Grant.
Got it. Thank you.
Commissioner Scherer?
Thank you for the presentation, Liz, and for your presentation a few weeks ago was very enlightening regarding case management. I'm just going to be a broken record because I sense we have a tsunami of distress headed our way. And to me, the need for mobilization is very immediate, that we need to start anticipating before Congress finalizes the budget and then we all react. I think we need to sort of do some worst case analysis planning and mobilize with our colleagues at the state level and the county level and our nonprofit community. This is going to be a severe jolt. So I don't want us to wait until a budget is approved, because I think we can read the tea leaves that the way they're lining up in Washington. And I tried to advise our city council last year that we are going to see funding cuts. I tried to advise them this year again at the CDBG home funding process and approval. And I'm just not getting a sense that there is an aggressive capacity to mobilize around the fallout. I'm just going to say that. And that's not putting blame on any one entity. It's just, I sense it coming, and I think we're going to be in a deep hole trying to find ways to coordinate around the most basic service deliveries in not only Scottsdale, but the Valley. So, and I really appreciate, Sue, that you're involved with this working group, and it's great to see a slide on solutions. We often don't hear about solutions, and I know I'm preaching to the choir here, but it's going to be a severe challenge for all of our clients who receive support through human services.
I have a question for you. What is the magnitude, or in dollars, of, say, annual support through the utility program?
Chair Lurie, members of the commission, Vice Chair Jung, are you talking specifically LIHEAP?
Yes.
I'm sorry, I don't have that information, but I can request it from DES and get it to you.
That would help us galvanize some energy around filling that gap if it does come to be. Thank you.
Yeah, I think we'd like to take this back to the Partners for Paiute board and have some discussion with that group as to how we can help fill the void.
I had one question, Mr. Chairman. Could you talk generally about timing issues? If there are so many different programs that you guys are working with different thresholds for qualifications, and I keep hearing that you know, in an instance where you have a utility bill overdue, I keep hearing that there are, not specifically in Scottsdale, but across the country, there are problems with processing these things quickly enough so that we get the rental and utility assistance to people in time. Can you just talk about, you know, generally what you're seeing? Is that a problem here? Is it a problem in Maricopa County and the state in general?
Chair Larry, members of the commission, Commissioner Dodd. So, yes, the other CAP offices also have backlogs, and that's why they kind of created this work group. Yeah, it is something that we are definitely working on every day, but it is a challenge, as you know, because we have a lot of people applying all at once.
Looking around, seeing no other questions, I believe, going once, going twice. Sue, Liz, Jenny, thank you for all you do at Vista del Camino. I was kind of curious with the food bank expansion and the food bank moving, how some of that space was going to be used. And I think you've come up with some creative ideas for recreational programs and the innovative grants that you've been able to leverage, as well as homeless day relief. So I really thank you for all that you do there.
And Chair Lori, can I also make a comment too at the ending of this? First, I wanted to say, as Jenny was up there, that really this team has worked so hard at Vista del Camino, especially post-COVID, to really try to open this center up to the community. So I loved that Jenny showed all those pictures, and she makes it look easy, but there's a lot of work that goes into that. And quite honestly, it has been amazing to see the community come together, and they know that Vista is a social service hub, and they are fine with that. We had some initial concerns about day relief and offering recreation programming. People have been very supportive of that, so it's really nice to see that center being opened up, and I really commend Sue's leadership for that because it hasn't been easy. So wanted to just really recognize the hard work of the staff as you did. And then Commissioner Scheer, to your point about being worried about this, you know, we are worried too, and you referenced Budget Review Commission and the threat assessment. So I meet every other week with the city manager, and that's going to be a project that we work on so that we can really formalize, you know, write down the things that are really happening, so that we can make a plan. And I know working with Mary and the federal funds and the Housing Authority, a concern as well. So really writing down what that impact could be. So I just want to make sure you know that that is very much on our radar, and I think even beyond us, it's, you know, on the radar of others too.
Carrie, if I could just, I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, I really, really appreciate that, and I have confidence that we are going to go through that process and be very focused on it. My primary emphasis is the coordination of the broader entities that are engaged beyond the city of Scottsdale that support us and support other cities. And, you know, that mobilization is going to have to happen very quickly to prioritize and figure out how to deal with shortfalls. And so that's the more regional component of it, but thank you very much, and I have every confidence that we're going to be focused on it locally, and I appreciate all that work.
All right, I think, Sue, you are up again, but with Jonathan.
Thank you. Chair Lori, members of the commission, I will be presenting the food bank expansion and information with Jonathan Montoya, our Human Service Rep Senior. I have to say a couple of words about Jonathan too. He's truly the backbone of the food bank operations. He's not just dedicated professional, he's someone who shows up early, very, very early every day, putting the hard work alongside our staff to ensure everything runs smoothly. He takes on the heavy lifting, both literally and figuratively, making sure that the food is sorted, stocked, and ready for distribution. What sets Jonathan apart is his genuine connection with the community. He has built strong relationships with our clients and with our volunteers. They love working with him. And the way that Jonathan organizes, I've never seen before. So he's going to help answer some questions with me, but I will provide the presentation. So in August, I provided a presentation to the Commission on the food bank expansion, and I am delighted to share that the food bank has successfully transitioned into the new location. If you see here, I have some pictures of the old warehouse at Vista del Camino. It has a lot of pallets. It was being used for storage. So as you know, that's not a very good use of our Vista del Camino facility, and we have grand plans to use that space. But it did take a lot of work to move all of that out into the warehouse. So we had several trucks, several days, moving all of those pallets into the trucks and, of course, to the warehouse. So now it is completely empty, and it just has a couple of things like pallet jack and things like that. But it is ready to be used, and Jenny is actually getting the floor waxed and cleaned, and it will be ready for rec programming soon. Here are some more pictures. This is actually of the new location at 7601 East McKellips Road. This was the warehouse. As many of you know, we did the brick by brick program there, and after that program, it was not being utilized except for some office space, and so it was pretty empty, as you see in the picture with Jonathan and his staff member. And the bottom picture is the after picture, and now it's filled with food items, again, organized very strategically by Jonathan and his staff. Next to that is the pantry area that we call. It fit all of the freezers, refrigerators, the table that the volunteers use to sort food boxes and items that are donated. And of course, we have several food bank appointment location signage, and it is very easy to see from the street. It's right next to the forensic office, so we feel very safe and secure as well. So in March, we were lucky enough to host a ribbon cutting and open house. Thank you for some of the commission members that were able to attend. If you weren't able to, we are happy to host you again. If you want to come visit us at any time, Jonathan will be happy to give you a tour. We had some council members that also attended, and we were able to really thank the community and partners and a lot of our facilities in the city of Scottsdale who really supported and helped us move to that location. It did take a lot of sweat and some tears from Jonathan and I, but we were very, very happy to be able to thank everyone that helped us move. I do want to talk a little bit about our food bank programs. When we say food boxes and you got a food box from the food bank, a lot of people just think it's a food box with non-perishable items. It actually looks like the picture that you see there. Each food box appointment really comes with fresh produce, protein, some type of dairy product, hygiene products if you need and ask for it, pet food if you're needing that, and even diapers. So really depending on what the household needs are, we actually talk to them at the appointment time. So when they call the front desk at Vista del Camino, the front desk asks, how many household members are there? Do you have any dietary restrictions? Some people say they are diabetic and can't eat a lot of sugary things or bread, so we make sure that that's not included in their food box. Some people have high blood pressure, so we try to see if there's food items that can help make sure that it's not affected by the food that we provide. So as you can see there, the food box itself is only about 10% of what we provide in our food box appointments. Walking bags are really provided for people that don't have transportation, but they're coming by foot. So it's a little bit easier for them to take walking bags. And of course, we will provide fresh produce and as much as they can take by foot. So we also provide ready-to-eat bags. Those are consisted of pop tops, utensils, plates, napkins, things that people who don't have a kitchen to cook in can really use to help them with their food insecurity. And we have a bread program at Vista del Camino. It is a bread rack. That is actually one of our lowest barrier food programs that we have. So some people have a hard time using our food bank and maybe other services because they don't want to call the front desk to make an appointment. They don't know when they can come or get off of work. And the bread program is you come into Vista del Camino, there's a rack full of bread, other items. Jonathan's team fills it with non-perishable items. Sometimes there's chips, sometimes there's canned foods, so really anything that really needs to go out fast, and it does in the bread racks. So all they have to do is come in, take what they need, and then we do ask them to just give us the poundage. So there's a scale, they put in their pounds, and then they're out the door. So a lot of people do utilize that, and it goes really, really fast. Another program we have is Healthy Packs. So that program provides nutrition for Scottsdale Unified School District students who rely on reduced or free lunch at school. And so during the weekend, they don't have any food that they can get. And so it is an application process. Scottsdale Community Partners is really the agency that has this program. We help with packing the things with our volunteers and delivering it to the schools. What I love about this program is when we deliver it to the schools, we give it to the community specialist who gives it to the teachers, and they very, very discreetly puts it into the kids' backpacks so that the other kids don't see it. So nobody knows that they're in a program, nobody knows what they're getting, and if kids do see it, it's just a bag full of goodies, so you can't tell what it is. So it's a great program. We do try to provide healthy nutritional foods. So everything that goes in the Healthy Packs is purchased by Scottsdale Community Partners. It's not donated items because we want to make sure that it is fresh and it's the items that we can give to the students. We also support brown bags that the senior centers provide, and we support the satellite food banks at Pike Neighborhood Center and the senior centers. So who do we help? This is actually a picture of a group who came and helped pack our Healthy Packs, but I want to let you know who we help in our food bank. So eligibility for a food box that we provide are Scottsdale residents, and they do have to have an ID. So of course, if they call our front desk or come into Vista del Camino saying, I have no food and I don't live in Scottsdale, we will provide them with food and resources on where else they can get a food box closer to their home. But for future, we do ask them to bring their ID and something that says that they are Scottsdale residents. Of course, Scottsdale seniors with all the different programs for the seniors, SUSD students, and then of course people experiencing homelessness. All right, so first some stats for the food bank. We provided, this is fiscal year 2024 through March of 2025. So starting in July of 2024, we provided 3,094 food boxes, 3,168 ready-to-eat bags, and then 236,000 pounds of fresh items. So we help serve 15,107 households, and unduplicated households, that's 533. So we do have several households that come every month for a food box to fill in the gap with their income or their SNAP benefits, and that's okay. We do want to provide food for the gap that they're experiencing. So a total value, we do put a value in the food that we provide, and that comes up to $596,000. And that includes the food boxes, the ready-to-eat bags, and the fresh food in pounds. So healthy packs at the bottom, we have provided 7,620 bags for 349 students. Right, so donations received. We have rescued 435,887 pounds of food, and that includes donations that come in through the food bank or Vista del Camino from individuals. Grocery rescue, where Jonathan and his team go out to different grocery stores and pick up fresh items. Community food drives, and of course, products that are delivered by St. Mary's Food Bank through a partnership, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in my next slide. So the total value of donations that we received is $972,000, and volunteer hours, 2,937 volunteer hours, which is amazing, and I have a slide for that at the end as well. Right. So this is a picture of our record poundage of food that we've provided in the food bank. I do want to tell you a story about this. So this was a family who came to the food bank. They made an appointment and came to the food bank. It's a mother, father, and 5 children. So they live in North Scottsdale. Excuse me. But they both lost their jobs unexpectedly. And they have 5 children. What they decided to do is move into their garage and rent out their house so that they can make enough to pay their mortgage. Of course, everything that they had was going to their mortgage, so they had no money for food. They didn't have SNAP benefits yet, so they came to our food bank for food. Again, when we give a food box to families in crisis, we don't just give perishable food items. Look at the milk, the fresh produce. I don't remember how many pounds this was, but again, it was a record number of pounds that we provided for food. And I do tell you that story because food insecurity can happen all across Scottsdale, all across the nation, to anybody, and food is a vital resource that everybody needs, and we want to make sure that there are really, really low barriers to getting food in our community. So they were able to get back on their feet and get a job, and so they don't utilize our services anymore, and that's great, and that's what our goal is to make sure that they can provide food for themselves without our help, but we are very, very lucky to have been there to help them throughout a tough process. All right. So sources of support, where do we get our food? So we have a partnership with St. Mary's and Scottsdale Community Partners. This partnership helps us get emergency food boxes at no cost to the city, and those are the boxes that I showed you with all the non-perishable items. They connect us with all of our grocery rescue stores. So they have our grocery stores that are local here in Scottsdale. They have a partnership actually with St. Mary's, and they connect them to us. So Jonathan's team goes out every morning to pick up those items from those grocery stores. And then St. Mary's also does weekly deliveries, and in those deliveries there could be a vast array of items such as dog food, frozen meals, fresh vegetables. One day we got a whole pallet full of potatoes, so it could be very, very random, and it has a lot of snacks and drinks as well. We also do a pickup with St. Vincent de Paul. They have a warehouse in Phoenix, and they allow us to come and pretty much shop their warehouse, and we get a lot of the food for our day relief center and people experiencing homelessness from St. Vincent de Paul, because it is ready-to-eat items that can be eaten without a kitchen. We do utilize some funds from the SRPMIC grant. We get community donations, we have food drives. Scottsdale Community Partners also provides us with a separate funding for the food bank if we need items to purchase, other types of grants, and then monetary donations like the picture on the bottom right. That is Elks Lodge. They provided us with $5,000 to buy a new freezer for our new food bank. So we do get some monetary donations throughout the year, and those are really how we operate the food bank. All right, our volunteers. So we have more than 30 volunteers that are our regular weekly volunteers that come every week, very, very dedicated, and we really could not operate the food bank without them. The picture of Mildred with the pink hat, we call her Princess, and she has been at the food bank longer than any of the staff. So she really understands, knows the food bank. She knows the clients, so she's a vital part of the food bank and us operating. It really, we rely on the volunteers. They sort the donations, organize them, make ready-to-eat bags, and also assist with the food box appointments. So they build a rapport like our staff do with our clients. We also have group volunteers, so if a company calls and they want to do a team building activity, when we invite them, usually that is something like a Healthy Packs packing event where they can come and do a huge packing event for us, but they also can do sorting and labeling donations. Usually that's about one time or monthly event. So the picture on the bottom, she is a volunteer and she did a drive for us and donated a bunch of pet food for us. And then Blue Zones has been able to come every month with the volunteer group to help pack Healthy Packs as well. All right. And that is the end of my presentation. I will take any questions.
Thank you, Sue and Jonathan. And wow, 435,000 pounds. I'm not even going to ask, and you don't have to answer, how you measure the weight of all the donations. But and I can personally attest to Jonathan's organization, having done Healthy Packs over there a couple times recently, and you know, he gets it all set up, and it becomes a very efficient process. And so, thank you for all that you do. It's a great operation. Commissioner Cooley.
Hey, thank you. It is, Jonathan. Great. You and your team do wonders. It's not just the distribution, but it's the whole community that you've built there. Mary and I were at that ribbon cutting, and on my way out, I passed somebody with a St. Mary's shirt on. I said, "Hey, I just wanted to thank you for all your help." She's like, "Don't thank me, thank them. We're the hub. They're doing the distribution. They're doing the heavy lifting." I'm like, "Wow, that's great." I was just floored. As to the Healthy Packs, has there been talk of any collaboration with the Scottsdale Blue Zones at all? Has that come up, or is it too abstract to try to shoehorn that in? I don't know how familiar you may or may not be with that.
Yeah, so Commissioner Cooley, we've been working with Blue Zones with different ideas for funding sources to see what type of projects they're interested in funding. So they've helped us quite a bit with manpower, and we're working on different initiatives to increase the number of Healthy Packs. So with Scottsdale Community Partners, they provide the Healthy Packs for 352 students, and that's per week. That the staff go and deliver those bags to. So we're trying to increase the number of students because there's about 50 on the wait list. It takes roughly $5,000 to $10,000 to purchase that amount of food for the year for those students during the school year. So we're getting different ideas together so we can put more children enrolled in the Healthy Pack program.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Great presentation, Sue. Thank you. Very uplifting, and I know a lot of work to get to the new facility. Jonathan, it's always great to see you, and thank you. I'm glad that Sue had a chance to introduce you a little bit because you've been around this place a long time and have done some really great work for us. Thank you. Just a question on the volunteers for the food bank. I mean, do you need more volunteers? Do you need more weekly volunteers? I mean, where is that need, if I could ask? Thank you.
Commissioner, I would like to say that we have grown the volunteer base. When I started in my role about a year and a half ago, we had 12 volunteers throughout the week. We've grown that to 34 volunteers. So it's taken lots of tears, like Sue said, to meet with those volunteers and see what their passions are, to make sure that they're a good fit for the food bank. For the need in the community, as far as growing the food bank, we probably need to grow to about 40 or 50 volunteers total throughout the week. And we're a 6 to 5 operation, so it's all day, early mornings. But volunteers can volunteer about 3-hour shifts or more. And we'll never decline your help. So we try to get everybody involved, and we turn on music and have a great time. So I do have quite a bit of volunteer activity that comes from Brandon Chapman. He's very helpful in forwarding those applications, so we review them as quick as possible, and I have people come work with us. So we have a great time.
Commissioner Turgel.
Jonathan, thank you very much, and Sue also for the great work that you do. Jonathan, are you familiar with Borderlands Produce Rescue?
What was the name again?
Borderlands Produce Rescue.
I haven't heard of that yet.
It has been around since the 90s, and anyone can go to their multiple sites and purchase for a nominal amount a car full of wonderful produce. You never know what you're going to get. And I did that weekly on behalf of an immigrant support organization. So I would purchase the food, the produce, and then they would tell me what church to bring it to for distribution to people who were not comfortable going to food banks because of some obvious reasons. The reason I raise it is there may be an opportunity to there may be an opportunity to take advantage of what may be left over from them. And so I would encourage you to check them out. They have a website, and they, as I say, they've been around since the 90s. It's called Borderlands Produce Rescue, and they're a superb organization. They have pop-up locations, which they announce in advance at various mega churches, because there are hundreds and hundreds of cars that come in. But that's the way their business plan works. But what happens to the food when they're finished selling on that one day may be something that's an opportunity. I don't know what becomes of it, but it comes in truckloads.
Chair Lurie, members of the Commissioner Turgel, thank you. We will look into that. With our partnership with St. Mary's, they do have strict rules and guidelines we have to follow, and mainly because if they already partner with a certain organization, we can't have a separate partnership with them. So we will make sure that St. Mary's is okay with that, and we can look into partnering with them.
That's curious. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? If not, thank you so much for what you do for our community, and very much appreciated.
Thank you.
So the next agenda item is mine, and it's an opportunity for us to share our thoughts about the funding process. This was my 4th iteration through this. Let's face it, it's really the most major activity that this commission does in the year. As we talk about this, I also would encourage input from staff, Mary, Kara, Sue, and others on the staff. Just a few notes before I turn it over to you all, though. As I was thinking about this earlier today, this funding process, even though we don't see all of it, it's really almost an annual process. The funding year starts July 1. Proposals are submitted by mid-October. Responses to questions submitted by staff are due by the end of November. We get the proposals in January, make our recommendations in March, and then they're approved by the City Council in late April and May, and I'm pleased to say that all of our proposals were approved this year. One thing that has radically transformed in my mind from the first year I did this is setting those 5 priority areas. And just to remind you what those are: emergency housing, crisis case management, homeless support, vulnerable populations, meaning seniors and disabled, and development of youth. I was also really pleased to see that we had input from the Mayor's Youth Council this year. I thought that was quite valuable. I think also what has really improved over the years, I think the first year that I was on the commission, they had more from giving you a couple reams of paper literally to take home to read, to creating the SharePoint site, and then most recently moving to Neighborly. I really thank the city staff for all they do to make this seamless and efficient for us. And thank you to all of you as commissioners for, like this year, reading 37 proposals, about 700 pages of documentation, and thoughtfully responding to those with your rankings. And so with that, I want to open it up and hear from you all what you think was good, where you think we have opportunities to improve the process in future years. And I recognize maybe a couple of you won't be on the commission in future years, but your input is still valuable. And I see a hand go up, so Commissioner Turgel.
Thank you. I just want to echo what the chair said about the extraordinary amount of work that the staff puts in, as well as those who are sitting on the dais. It is a long and thoughtful process, and obviously the proof of the pudding, as Roger pointed out, is over the last 2 council meetings, all of the recommendations of this commission were approved, and that really tells the tale. This probably is my last meeting because my term expires on the 17th. So when I share some comments about the funding process, I'm going to be doing it really looking back over the last 3 years that I've served on this commission and the experience of going through 3 funding cycles. So let me just get into it. My main concern is that our evaluation of grants, in my view, is quantitative. And I believe it should be a mix of both quantitative and qualitative measures. The open field space for comments that's afforded to us allows for some personal observations, but our comments don't seem to be a factor in the grading or outcome scores or the ranking or the ultimate approval. So we have an opportunity to make some comments, but I'm not sure that those comments find their way into the grading or the ultimate decisions. So my biggest criticism of the process is that it is possible and even likely that an applicant could achieve high scores according to the scoring methodology, and yet, in my view, still not necessarily be worthy of funding. There should be at least a binary question for evaluators, which would give the evaluator a chance to say whether she or he approves or disapproves of funding of the grant. That would be an interesting addition to the process. So you go through all of the logarithm, and but somewhere, I wonder what would be the effect of high scores and yet a number of commissioners saying, no, I don't necessarily agree that this should be funded. So that's number one. Secondly, and I took some time during this funding process to focus on this particular issue. I believe that all the applicants that submit requests, submit grant applications, should be required to provide a link to their most recent IRS Form 990, which we've discussed in the past. It does contain very helpful information for evaluators. And I wanted to share these 6 key factors that I think are most helpful that the 990 affords. 1, under revenue sources, it gives insight into whether the organization is overly dependent on one funder or a single revenue stream. 2, with respect to spending ratios, it provides information on what percentage goes to programs versus administration and fundraising. 3, board independence. It helps to determine whether there are checks and balances at the top. Next, executive compensation. It is appropriately and reasonably aligned with, the question is it appropriately and reasonably aligned with the mission, scale, and sector norms? Liquidity. Are there enough reserves to weather financial and economic uncertainty? And the last point with respect to the 990 that I think is helpful has to do with fundraising efficiency. Is the return on fundraising expenditures justifiable? The 990 doesn't tell the whole story, but I believe it often tells hard truths. And I believe that it should be a key element in evaluating grant requests. And my last comment is that I really think that there should be a process established for applicants in some yet-to-be-determined designated top-tier group when it comes to scores in each funding category to come for a personal interview. Now, we've experimented with different ways of having those who submit grant requests appear in person, and sometimes it was all, sometimes it was a few, it was done selectively. I think there needs to be some attention given to winnowing down by category the likely candidates or those with the highest scores, or however we determine it, to actually come before the commission for Q&A. So those are my comments. Thank you.
Commissioner Dodds?
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I don't know if this is my last meeting or not. Apparently, we may be serving for another one, and it sort of depends.
Yeah,
we'll
let me address that, because even though your term, Commissioner Turgel, Commissioner Dodds, and Vice Chair Jung, is technically up May 17th, it's not going to be until June when the council does the appointments. So I think the ask is that you continue through the May 22nd meeting, if you're willing to.
Absolutely. That's going to depend on Stu's calendar, I suppose, and Mary's. So, what I'd like to say is that I also appreciate the staff's work on a process that is pretty amazing. I mean, having to coordinate all of the different input, the applications and the applicants, and then turning it over to us in a form that we can digest it's a lot of work, and I really appreciate what they've done. Also, during the last 3 years, I've seen some tweaks, some that worked well and some that I thought did not work. One of my own, when I asked last year that if we had money left over, that applicants would indicate whether there was a minimum size of grant that they would accept from that leftover source. And I think the applicants really didn't understand what we were asking. Some of them said they would not accept any less than what was requested in the grant. And I believe when we went back and asked if they would accept a smaller amount after we'd gone through the process, they said yes. So they didn't quite understand that we were asking basically, is this amount worth even accepting for the administrative cost of receiving these monies and reporting on them. So that's to say that, so some things work, some things don't, and I think the commission needs to continue that process, make some tweaks and see what really works and what doesn't. The main thing that I heard during this year's process that I thought was really helpful, potentially a big change, would be some sort of an informal study session after the grants have been received, but before we rate them. At least that's how I heard this particular idea. And that would be that there's some discussion among the commissioners before the commission does the ratings. So that would allow individual commissioners to raise questions that perhaps other commissioners had not thought of, bring to the fore some information that they might have about the organizations. So that might help solidify the ratings process a little better, because it's so difficult to try to take all of these different value judgments and consolidate them as sort of one number. And that's what we're kind of being asked to do now. So I realize there may be some heartburn with some of the legal implications of discussing the grants beforehand, the awarding of the grants beforehand, but it seems like that's, the Supreme Court does the same thing when they settle cases, so.
I can see Mary reaching for her microphone.
Chair Lurie, members of the commission, I would have to address that informal conversation with purchasing. Currently, the procurement rules as they currently stand with the city is that you cannot discuss other applicants and their applications with those who are rating them amongst each other. So when the city sends out a request for proposal, the raters are assigned, and we all meet and go over the regulations, but then the raters are not allowed to talk to each other until the end, and they come back and review the scores, which is why we do it the current way that we do it. So it would be out of the norm necessarily, and I would need to speak with legal and procurement.
Thanks, I appreciate that, and I thought that that may be the chief problem with that sort of approach. Let's see, I was trying to look at my notes and see if there are any other things that, well, one of the things that in the notice of application, funding application process, I'm not sure whether we distinguish between the different funding sources enough. My interest there is that there are two things. One is that if people are applying if the applicants are seeking federal funding, I kind of wonder if they understand the intricacies of receiving and reporting for federal grants. And I don't know whether that is somehow captured in the process or whether we could capture it, but I think that's a legitimate concern, because it's a much more detailed process for folks that are trying to receive federal funds than our utility funding. For the utility funding, I think it would be a good idea to at least make sure that applicants are aware that they're receiving the funds through the utility billing program. And it might be if we want to market that program more, that they should imagine themselves addressing utility bill customers. What is it that we could say to a customer who's making these monthly donations that would explain to them what the value is for Scottsdale citizens and Scottsdale utility bill payers? I think that's all I had. Thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner Dodds. Who wants to, Commissioner Cooley?
Hard to believe I'd have something to say. I'll make it quick. As freshman commissioner, I found it difficult. I understand the process is extremely better than it was years ago. I came in, I saw in the early part of my term, CAS, Family Promise, Community House speak, and I was thinking, oh, well, I guess we'll hear from the rest of them before we don't. Okay, so I like, okay, that's fine. So we obviously don't do that necessarily, and had done it before, and I'm not suggesting we do it again. But from my perspective, and with two newbie commissioners coming on board in June, I think it would be helpful to be, and this may be the way I'm wired, less subjective and more objective as far as how we approach it. I was struggling with connecting the dots between the applications and the ratings. I was like, okay, so does this answer this question? And so if that's that, and it does, is that a 3 or is that a 5 or what? And I was just like struggling with that. So maybe there's some model we can come up with that'll help with that. It would help me. And the other thing that I would just throw out, Sue and I were at the Arizona Housing Coalition conference yesterday and today, and there was a 4-pillar, 1-mission panel this morning that included, oddly enough, Nate Smith from CAS and 3 others, and they talked about what if we had collaborative groups of like agencies that were given a pool of money and said, okay, now what are you going to do with this? Just as a different tact altogether, instead of saying, you get some and you get some, we ran out, we didn't get it. But maybe if you've got a shelter group, collaborative group, something along those lines to where it's busted up, and then put the onus back on them and say, okay, so you guys, you're so smart, instead of replicating a lot of the same services, why not collaborate and see what you can do with the same amount of money?
Well, if I can just add to that,
Please.
as a retired CEO of a community foundation, I can tell you that at least in that sector, there's a high value placed on collaboration, on just exactly what you said, Lee, on bringing organizations with a shared concerns, shared vision, shared needs together to talk about how collectively they can work together where, 1 and 1 is 3. And so you're spot on.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I'm so glad you raised that, because I think it was 2 or 3 years ago that had surfaced as a proposal. And Mary, I see you. Did you want to speak to that?
Chair Lurie, members of the commission, I just wanted to say that was a recommendation out of our office. And it was part of the application process this year. And hopefully with the stakeholder meetings as we move forward with the Human Services Strategic Plan, as we bring those stakeholders together, they'll open the doors for conversations and working collaboratively to fill out the applications together.
Commissioner Scherer?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This feedback from my colleagues has been excellent. I am thinking that because the calendar, and I think the calendar works very well. I think staff has done a great job to fine-tune the calendar. But I also realize there's a point where you got to go. And you need time in advance of putting out the notice of funding to modify something to be in response to some of our feedback. So one of the things we may want to do is, if it works, in the context of an August meeting where you're going to gather this feedback from us tonight. We're not going to have time to distill it and vote on it, but you're going to get a whole lot of feedback. If we could come back in August, early enough in August, maybe it's the first meeting, maybe it's the second, I don't know, Mary, you know what time you need to put the NOFA together, but and just kind of review what you heard us say and give us a chance to gnaw on it one more time before you finalize the notice of funding. And maybe some of that can be in the course of written material you send out to us, like I've heard this and here's what we're considering. So we come to that meeting with a with a sense of focus. I also agree with the positives that you've heard this evening. Having been through this 4 times, it has gotten better. It's always going to be an imperfect process, no question about it. But I think when our council receives this funding and we don't have applicants coming before them feeling like they didn't get a fair shake, I mean, it's all positive. And we're putting money into very, very worthy causes. I appreciate that the last couple cycles, staff has brought set-asides, the CDBG set-asides, to us so that we had a role in that and felt like we could influence the set-asides. And so I'm grateful for that. One of the biggest improvements I felt that I've seen in the years is staff's input. When I first came on the commission, I feel like staff got a memo from legal that said, thou shalt not influence the commission, that the commission needs to do their thing and staff can't taint that, that process. And we are very appreciative of the professional staff. You know the day-to-day, on-the-ground challenges. You understand the various organizations that you interact with. You also have an understanding of the funding, the potential funding shortages, because as we're doing our funding process, the city's budget process is also getting formulated. And it's coming out of the chutes in about a January context where it's starting to get pretty formed. And so the further we go down the road, without an understanding of that, we may be at a disconnect. There may be contracts that are funded through general city dollars or through other mechanisms that suddenly may not be available for funding through our normal budget process that could influence how we allocate dollars through the funding that we get. So I appreciate the opportunity to not keep the processes separate and distinct, but to keep educating us about what you're seeing on your radar screens, about potential shortfalls, and how that may factor into some of our decision work regarding the recommended allocations. I have historically struggled with point systems. I understand purchasing loves point systems because everything looks like it's just been objectively resolved through various points. But I am hearing my colleagues talk about an absence of a qualitative conversation that may allow us to be more refined in our personal point systems when we do the scoring. And that includes input from staff. Again, I think we have an incredible staff, and we are better when we hear what you have to say. That does not mean it's a rubber stamp and that we're going to run with it, but it gives us additional input to consider in the context of our decision making. I think it's also helpful, and Roger mentioned this, the priorities, and I honestly thought, and staff worked those priorities. You got together and you worked them and you brought them to us, and we didn't really modify them. They were excellent, and I thought they were going to sort of tighten my decision scope. But then I really looked at them, and it's like most everything sort of fits those priorities. So then I had a struggle internally, and maybe this is part of what Lee was talking about, is do I, in my own head, rate those priorities within the priorities? And so I don't know if there's a need for us to allow ourselves to, I don't want to say rank order officially, but to talk about what priorities really are a little more important than the other ones as we move through this process. I'm just sort of thinking out loud and sharing some of that information with you. You will come back because we didn't fund the endowment, the 2 endowment grant requests, and so we set those aside. we weren't exactly enamored with how those dollars are being allocated. We hope to get more interest in that, but there's a little work to do to shape the sort of how we approach the endowments. And there are two separate endowments, but we kind of lumped them together. I don't have a problem with that, but I do think we'd love to see more money to allocate and more interest in that particular funding allocation. This is on the verge of like nitpick stuff, but when I go through and read, because there's like 40 pages of stuff, and we're going through and reading the order of the applications, I have to go to like section C, or I have to go into it several pages before I know what are they proposing. What is their? I know there's a subject header that is sort of a little summary, but what are they actually wanting to do? So that's way down, and I'm going back, and then I'm coming back. So that's a nitpick, and you can take it for what it's worth. I thought last year when you consolidated the scoring categories, that was a great step forward. I also had a feeling that we sort of backed into putting the point systems into those categories to come up with some magic number of points. And so I do think it would be helpful to get some feedback from the commission about the various point categories, 0 to 15, 0 to 6, 0 to 9. I mean, are those really reflective of the most important things we're trying to fund? And the more refined and comfortable we are with the scoring sheet, the potentially more comfortable we will with the total point systems and the way it sort of, lays out. I don't know, but that's something else to consider. Let me look at my sheet here. I'm all over the place, but I will make one final run at the notion that we should obligate ourselves to grant full funding for the respective grants. I will say this year, I thought that worked out fine. We didn't get into a lot of back and forth, and I think it just sort of came out okay this year. But I'm not sure why we want to tie ourselves down at the front end before we have a chance to go through the process and at least allow some latitude to say we can fund 3 more agencies. If we fund at 80%, 80%, and 80% at some level down on the ranking system, we're going to make 3 more agencies happy. Now, I know the counter to that is, but these proposals are coming in expecting full funding. But let's be honest, what we're funding is not a total program. We're not funding a $500,000 total program. We're ending up funding a small percentage of a body that helps the program that's a big program. So I think we're kidding ourselves if we're thinking that we're doing them a disservice if we allow ourselves to fund them less than full funding, because we're just funding a percentage of a person. And so instead of, half an FTE, we might be funding 0.4 of an FTE or something like that. So I thought I'd make another run at that. I know I was in the minority before, but I don't understand why we want to tie our hands at the front side of this when we can tie our hands at the back side if we want and do full funding. So those are my comments, and I really appreciate all the work that staff has done, and I hope you heard me say we super value staff input. Thank you.
Vice Chair John.
Thank you. I appreciate the comments that have already been shared and echo the compliments to staff for all of their hard work in this process. There's one area that came up this year I wanted to talk about, and it relates a little bit to what Stuart brought up in terms of, is there a place that we can veto an application based on circumstances that are not part of the evaluation? And I'll give an example of something that happened this year. We had only one grant application for a category, and it ended up getting funded. So it would be nice to have an out if there aren't competitive proposals, or for any other circumstance that might arise. And I would also maybe like to have more discussion on, if there are no proposals for certain funding, how can we enable the staff to use those funds the way they see it best utilized, particularly if we are going to have funding shortages in the future. So I'm hoping we can explore that in the next cycle. And lastly, my understanding is we had an entity that was being paid to do the scope of work from another entity, and then was requesting funds from the city as well. And I think that would be another opportunity in the application process to say, is the scope of work that you're preparing to do for the city of Scottsdale being paid for by another entity? So those are my comments. I thoroughly enjoyed the process this time. It's greatly improved, and look forward to the next time.
Commissioner Jameson.
Thank you, Roger. Well, this is my fourth cycle, and I really appreciate all the comments from my fellow commissioners here, and particularly the fact that we went from 700 live pages to electronic processes. That's really a huge improvement. So kudos to the staff. Could never, ever, ever get this done without you. And I just want to recognize one, I think, unsung hero in all this is Chad and his magic spreadsheets. So he's shortened a lot of conversations by his terrific stuff. I like the fact that we did focus on top scorers this year. I think that worked much better than trying to slice and dice down to 63%, 0.78%. So that worked well. One thing I would like to focus on is keeping the money here and figure out how to emphasize Scottsdale-based organizations. And I don't know if there's a way to bonus that, because they all say, well, they don't all actually offer the services in our town, but many have headquarters outside of the city who do provide services here. But I think to incentivize either outside nonprofits to partner directly with our locals to keep the money in Scottsdale. Anyway, I think there could be a bonus system for that. One of the things, and I'll echo what Stuart was talking about, the qualitative versus quantitative. Again, if there's a way to build in a question of whether these agencies actually do conduct client satisfaction surveys, and if so, can they release that information? Of course, it's all going to be anonymous, but I think that really helps from a qualitative standpoint and reputational standpoint. And, you know, one of the agencies that consistently comes back to us for money, I believe, has a terrible reputation with their clients. Their scores were quite high, and it's that weird kind of, numbers game versus actual impact and client satisfaction. So I think if they do conduct them, kudos, and if they do, I'd like to see them. And those are my top things, and I just appreciate how far we've come in the 4 cycles I've been here, and looking forward to next.
Jeff, if I could just add to something that you said, the key word at the end of your comments was impact. Client satisfaction is important. That isn't necessarily the best, exclusively the best measure of impact.
Mm-hmm.
Impact is how are lives being changed, and that is the key issue that every grantor, whether they're civic organizations, municipalities, private foundations, whatever, should be looking for. How are these funds changing people's lives? And organizations that are seeking support really, if they fail to demonstrate that, they do so at their own peril, I believe.
Agreed.
Wow, it's really been great discussion. It is 7:20, and I'm sure everybody would love to go home. If it were earlier, I'd say that let's continue the conversation, but I think I'd like to advocate that to Neil's point that we set aside an agenda item in August, in early August, if that's not too late to impact the process. But we come back in August, and Kira, I saw you taking notes. I also took notes, and we come back and highlight and identify the very specific items we want to adjust at that time. Any other comments from staff?
Chair Lurie, members of the commission, the only suggestions that staff is bringing forward to you is that we do agree that the 990 form should be added to the application process as part of one of their documents that they have to submit. We would ask that you would consider that anybody who receives a score of 70 and above would move forward to the informal recommendations. If they receive a score below 70, they are then eliminated from consideration. So it's like you get a C, you move forward for consideration. If you score less than that, you're out.
And those then might be that group that I mentioned that might be invited to come for face-to-face.
So that is one of our major suggestions. We still would like to leave the collaborative application process in hopes that through these strategic outreach meetings and stakeholders that we can get people to start working together and encourage that.
Mary, I'm going to take a leap of faith by saying that it probably wouldn't ruffle anybody's feathers in the legal department or procurement if when the notices went out, there was some language that said we encourage and in other words, to make the point that we encourage and the fostering of collaborative efforts among and between organizations. I think that's a fairly benign statement, but what we do with it on the back end is kind of up to us.
All right, moving forward, identifying future agenda items. Well, let me tell you, if you thought this was a long meeting, our May 22nd meeting, we're going to have a homeless update, an update on, keep me honest on this, a homeless update, an update on bridge housing, a director's report, an update on Scottsdale Cares, on heat relief, which I think will be part of the director's report. And last but not least, we're going to have Nicole Newhouse here, who is the executive director of the Arizona Housing Coalition, talking to us about homeless initiatives and what communities should be doing. Not naming names, but I know that one person on the dais has a 6:05 a.m. flight the next morning to Athens, Greece. So I hope it's not till 9 o'clock at night, or I might just be going straight to the airport from here. Next Monday, May 15th, I think you all got the, or no, excuse me, not May 15th, May 12th. I think you all got the email. Just curious how many of you are going on the homeless tour?
I will be.
Great, great. And then Thursday, May 15th, we've got the strategic plan event over at the Community Design Studio. And then May 22nd, which will be our last meeting before August. And I think the date of our first August meeting would be August 14th, if I'm not mistaken. Second Thursday. No, that wouldn't be right. It would have to be the 8th, 7th? No, maybe it is the 14th.
I'm showing, I might be tired eyes, but August 21st is the 3rd.
Oh,
I'm
but
sorry.
don't we do 2nd and 4th?
Oh, I'm sorry, you're right. Yep. That would be Thursday, the 14th.
Okay, very good. And I recognize some of your terms are up, but hope you'll be here for May 22nd, even if I told you how long the agenda will be. So, moving forward, any other items? Otherwise, a motion to adjourn? And a roll
Second.
call. A roll call.
All right, Chair Lori,
Yes.
Vice Chair Jung,
Yes.
Commissioner Turgel,
Yes.
Commissioner Dodds,
Yes.
Commissioner Shear,
Yes.
Commissioner Cooley,
Yes.
and Commissioner Jameson.
Yes.
We are adjourned. I'm hungry.